This is the Business of Esports podcast.
The fastest growing entertainment phenomenon of this generation.
I, Prophet of Esports, joined today by my friend and co-host William Collis.
Yeah, we got the book of esports out. It's a big deal.
So everyone knows me as the Prophet and William as the Professor. As the Prophet of Esports, I rely on trustworthy and meaningful data every day. Data from our research partner, YouGov, offers the most complete view of esports fans and gamers in the world, providing context to who they are, what they think, the brands they buy, and things they do. YouGov's connected insights and research services inform strategy at every level. If you're a team, a brand, agency, or rights holder, you should be talking with YouGov. Their partners measure and maximize ROI and are telling compelling stories with data. Visit yougov.com/gaming-esports to learn more. From the keyboard to the boardroom, this is the Business of Esports after show live stream. I am Paul Dawalibi, and I'm joined today by my friends and co-hosts, Lindsay the Boss Poss, Jeff the Juice Cohen. For those of you who are new to the after show, welcome to the official after show and live stream of esports. What we do here is we cover all the most pressing gaming and news topics of the week, but we look at all of it through a business and C-suite lens. And as the after show live stream, we cover everything that just didn't make it into the podcast. This week, actually, a lot didn't make it into the podcast. Let me just specify, everything didn't make it into the podcast this week. So we have a lot to choose from. How you guys doing? Someone has a bit of an echo. Probably Jeff, because he refuses to wear headphones.
I blame Jeff.
Is it me? Testing. Testing.
It's definitely you.
Great. Well, I'm doing good. I have a good feeling about this live stream, but this is a bad start.
We got lots to talk about, guys. For all of you who show up to the live stream every week, thank you. Thank you for telling your friends about the live stream. This is my favorite part of the week. I won't speak for Lindsay and Jeff, but it's my favorite part of the week because we get to do all this live with you guys. And so I encourage you, if you're there, you're lurking, thank you. We don't mind, but would love for people to ask questions, get involved. It's a safe space. We love to talk about the things that you guys want to talk about. Now, I don't know, how much should I hint at what's coming on the podcast tomorrow? So I don't have any topics I can hint at, because tomorrow, guys, we have the biggest guest on the podcast we have ever had. Okay, and we've had,
aside from me, obviously.
We've had like Strauss Zelnick, right? Who's CEO of Take-Two Interactive. He was the interim chairman at CBS, right? And I still think maybe tomorrow is the biggest guest we have ever had. I would go so far as to say this is like gaming royalty tomorrow. And I don't know. Should I, you guys think I should be telling them who it is? Should I be?
No, I would just say refresh your podcast feed endlessly.
There should be some big reveal. I don't know. Like it's, you should
Yeah.
We thought about,
I thought there would be a montage or some sort of multimedia video here.
There may be tomorrow. I don't know about tonight. There may be tomorrow. If Jillian's listening, you can thank Jeff for just giving you more homework. But yeah, I think I'm not going to reveal who it is, but it's massive.
I wouldn't. Yeah, just everyone refresh your podcast feeds. Like,
you should have told us that
ready.
Beforehand. I almost blurted it out. I mean, you know,
you would.
Well, how would I know not to say something unless I'm told? You can't. The juice is on the loose.
The juice is on the loose. Christian says, have the juice and the boss officially stuck now? Howdy, y'all. Christian,
like it.
I think so. I like it. I like them both. And Christian says, Tyler Blevins. Christian, you will have to tune in tomorrow. I cannot say. But it's not only what I will say our biggest guest ever. I also think it's probably our best episode ever. And not to take anything away from all the other episodes and all the other guests, but just it was literally just such a good discussion, such an interesting discussion. We didn't even get to news topics. Okay, it went the full hour. We didn't get to a single piece of news. It was all discussion about this person and this person's business. And I think you guys are really going to enjoy the episode tomorrow. I don't want to I mean, I'm already overhyping it, but
It's
I'm really
appropriate.
excited.
I mean, we'll stop soon, but it's appropriate.
All right. Let's we want to dive into some topics, guys. Is there anything this week you guys had going on that maybe you want to talk about? No? We dive into some topics?
I mean, sure.
Yeah. Still.
Do it.
Okay. Let's start with something that I thought was a little juicy here, okay? And again, let's try and keep it clean as much as possible. I don't know how it would not be clean, but let me just bring this up here. And the headline here is Call of Duty League and Overwatch League loosen sponsorship restrictions will allow betting and liquor sponsors. Now, I don't remember if the article mentions this, but Activision Blizzard especially has been very careful about the sponsors they bring into both franchise leagues. Up until now, they had rejected anything that was even remotely like 21 plus. And so this is a big course change for them. And I'm curious what you guys think in terms of the why, and what do you think the implications might be here?
Okay, so I had actually I had sent you guys a different article this week, and I'm not sure if you got a chance to read it, but essentially the article was about how a lot of sponsors were pulling back from Overwatch League sponsorships and looking at streamers instead. So that
Hold on, who was this, Lindsay?
Let me look up the actual article, but I sent it, and I knew you guys weren't going to read it because it's called "Gaming Influencers Are the Future of Esports."
Oh yeah, no, I had seen that.
There was actual stories in here. Like there's a Houston Outlaws player who actually quit and went to Twitch and like made a lot of money. The head of United Talent Agency says streaming is the way for companies to make money off of esports athletes. Like there was a couple, I'm looking now.
But how are you tying this back to
This feels
Activision
like a different
Blizzard?
article.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying that like you're seeing streamers and other people specifically leaving Overwatch League to go seek other money-making opportunities.
Fair.
So adding in sponsorships for things like liquor and betting that might actually be attractive to a younger audience, or a way to engage a younger audience seems
You
like
think
more fun to me.
adding these sponsors will bring a younger audience to their franchise leagues?
Yeah.
I think
So you think if this Overwatch League match was sponsored by Bud Light, it's going to get more under 21?
I think not under, over 21. But there's the money. I mean, again, like I'm from this generation. So people aged 20 to 30 have a lot of disposable income, have a lot of time on their hands, and are generally very engaged with esports. Yep. Bringing in a liquor sponsorship and allowing betting is a way to further engage that audience. Imagine like Bud Light sponsoring a tournament or a game or whatever. Like, just makes more sense to me than like opening that up makes more sense to me when they're losing sponsorships.
What you're arguing, Lindsay, is a little bit like the tail wagging the dog a bit. Like I don't know if the ads are going to create more engagement, but I think it's a good moneymaker, and I understand why those ads want that audience. So I think it's kind of a win-win for both the league and for those sponsors. I'm not sure that having those sponsors, like nobody's like, I'm going to watch more Overwatch League because I can see DraftKings ads. Like, hell yeah, that's so awesome. Like, there's a Budweiser ad. Like, cool. I'm gonna watch more. But it's a money making thing, and I think this was inevitable. Because if you watch any sort of sporting event on TV these days, or anywhere you watch it, you see a ton of sports betting ads and beer ads, and then car commercials and a bunch of other ads as well. But those are two massive categories. So it's a bit surprising that the Overwatch League had, particularly for a league that I think is viewed as hurting for revenue, maybe is a strong word, but they're still in their infancy and they need revenue streams. Why would they be holier than thou and kind of not accepting money from a beer sponsor? Like, it's not like something explicitly bad or illegal. I mean, it's beer, it's alcohol, like it's very mainstream thing.
Isn't this the story of Activision Blizzard franchise leagues, like in a perfectly encapsulated nutshell, right? It's high hopes, high dreams, over promise, right? We don't need, betting and liquor sponsors. We're family friendly. Millions of people will come watch us, right? We don't need to go to that into the gutter with the rest of the, the esports. We're just so much bigger and better, right? And then the product under delivers, and now they're scrambling for revenue, right? Like how do we keep the ship afloat, basically? And so do you guys feel like this smells of desperation, right? Because they did toe the line of we're family friendly, we're better than this. They didn't say that publicly, obviously, but a lot of the actions implied that, right? And now you make this 180 turn. I don't see this as like, oh, very strategic. We're desperate. We need dollars coming in. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you guys don't agree with that.
Yeah, I definitely see it like that. I just think that the ability, the betting and usually the liquor sponsorships also, or alcohol sponsorships in general, come with more fan engagement experiences that I also think that they're hurting for. That was my point. Like, this is a way to better engage fans. Not this is a way to drive fans to them, but it's a way to better engage fans.
Okay, so, but do you think there's some downside here? Do you think losing the family-friendly label, will it hurt viewership at all?
I mean, this isn't like the 1960s. Like,
okay,
alcohol
some parents
not family friendly.
So you think there's no parents that would just say, I'm not taking my kid to an Overwatch League match, or I'm not letting them watch Overwatch League on YouTube because every 10 minutes it's Bud Light?
I mean, there might be some very small portion of people who do that, but I think we're kind of past that. Like, these ads have become so mainstream. Like, you can't watch a baseball game. You can't watch, the Friends reunion without seeing a Budweiser. Like, it's just, maybe those aren't great examples.
They're ubiquitous.
The average age of both of those viewerships is like 1,000, but you know what I mean? They're so mainstream.
Friends and Major League Baseball.
That was terrible.
Really going after that 13 to 18 crowd.
That might have been the two worst examples I could have possibly came up with, and I have no idea why I came up with those two, but probably anyway.
For everyone listening, Friends was a show in the 90s, okay? Because
oh my gosh.
The point is they're very mainstream. So I think this is more of a why was their policy in the first place?
Yeah.
This versus, why did they make it now? Like, I think it was a mistake to ever have not allowed those ads versus it's a mistake now to allow them. And
because they thought, I'm sure, that by being family friendly, you would get a whole category of audience that would feel more comfortable spending money going to an Overwatch League match than they would taking their kids somewhere else.
Do you think it's possible that this was a strategic response to maybe the viewership is actually skewing older than they thought? So they had thought it was going to be mostly 13 to 18, and now it's actually mostly 18 to 30. And they're like, well, okay, now that we see what our audience actually is, why are we limiting ourselves? Like, maybe there's some actual rational thought to this versus more of we seem to be positioning as like a retreat or a desperation play. Maybe it's, well, we thought the data was going to be this, the data turns out it's that, so we change our strategy based on that. Like, that's what good companies
Maybe someone just watched a football game and saw the Clydesdale horses and was like, oh, we could do that too.
I mean, Jeff, you give them too much credit, I think. Right? Like, I really think here's how the meeting went, which is the ship's going down, guys. Like, what can we do? Right? And that I think, yeah, right? And I'm sure they had turned down liquor and betting sponsors previously. And so the easy sort of solution was, hey, Budweiser called us like 6 months ago. Let's just go back to them and see if they still want to do a deal.
Let's not forget crypto. What was the article? It said crypto and what else?
Yeah, I was going to say, Christian, is this the same article?
It's the same article. I think it was an addition.
I mean, the article that I brought up doesn't mention crypto, but it may have been part of that story.
I thought there was something I saw.
And then New Sports says, yeah, we're going to get to this, New Sports, the Sony betting patent. We will get to that. Newsword says, so ESL purchase starts to make sense. What are you referring to there? I'm not sure. DL spent 70% of their budget on ads.
DraftKings is what he meant to say.
Oh, yeah. Well, customer acquisition is the.
So okay, so this isn't interesting. So the article I pulled up, it says in addition to gambling and alcohol, there's two other new sponsorship categories: crypto and armed forces, which is interesting. Okay. I don't know what to make of that. I mean, the crypto is a whole conversation we can go down. Like, that's a rabbit hole in and of itself. I'm not sure why they weren't allowing crypto. Like, maybe that was just some internal rule, but it seems there's nothing inherently inappropriate about crypto besides the fact that it's probably just a giant bubble. But the armed forces one is interesting and kind of plays into the fact of maybe they are looking at the data and saying, hey, this does skew older. What is appropriate to market to an 18 to 30-year-old that isn't appropriate to market to a 13 to 18-year-old, and join the military probably is one of those things. So, or
it's just that the military has made it known to the gaming world that they have millions of dollars to spend on recruitment, and those dollars are easily accessible because shooters are right in their wheelhouse in terms of target customers. Or target recruits in this case, right?
But why would they have had the policy against the military before? Is
because
the military
of the potential backlash, right? What do you call brainwashing 13-year-old kids? They can't make a decision for themselves. It's that kind of thinking, I guess. But their holier than thou approach, I agree, never really made sense, right? Because very few other games followed suit, right? I'm trying to think if any had explicitly not allowed those things. Fortnite maybe, because I'm trying to think. Fortnite never had any liquor sponsors or anything as part of their events, and maybe they just saw the success of Fortnite and said, "Look, let's be family friendly. We'll reach a bigger audience as a consequence." The reason why I like this story is because it kind of ties into a second story where I want to push back on you guys. Like, one thing you guys said is you don't think there's any parents, right, that would, and I'm curious what chat thinks in terms of would parents look at this and go, now I won't let my kid watch Overwatch, or I won't let my kid play Overwatch, right? Because this may be a bad influence on them, right? And it's sort of connected to this next story, which will continue the discussion, but in this context. And the headline here is, new poll shows 60% of parents know more about their child's favorite video games than they do about their classes at school. And it's interesting in the context of, what we just discussed. Again, it seems that in this survey, so they surveyed 2,000 mothers, okay, and mothers of children aged 6 to 14, and 53% of moms support gaming. 47% saw gaming as the perfect socially distanced solution. And the majority of mothers, right? So 60% said that they knew more about what, the time their kids were spending on video games than what they were doing in terms of homework. If this is the case, don't you think parents in general would be extra vigilant in terms of the content around those video games? Does this not sort of go against what you guys were saying, which is the parents won't care?
The only reason I think the parents would care is if the parents had an already developed stigma that video games lead to violence, which we already know is patently untrue. I don't think that people are looking at Overwatch and saying this game is leading to violence if they truly know what their children are playing. And that's like saying you can't watch the NFL because Budweiser is the official beer of the NFL. I just don't see a scenario in which well-informed parents would look at Overwatch or look at any type of sponsorship like that and not understand the bigger picture if they are well-informed.
Jeff, do you feel this negates?
No, I think there's two different things. I mean, I think the survey is pretty interesting. I think there's probably, some logical reasons why that parents feel they're more in tune with what's going on with the video games versus what's going on at school, One, maybe because it's happening just in front of them. So they're in the room, they're in the area, they see the game. So it's like, oh, I know what's happening here. At school, I'm not there. I don't know what's happening. Two, potentially, you know, I remember when I would go to school, you'd come home, your mom and dad would be like, hey, how was school? What'd you do? You'd be like, yeah, it was good, whatever, you know, good day. You just didn't care. You wouldn't say anything. But maybe because the kids are passionate about video games, when someone said, hey, what game you play? Oh, Fortnite, it's really cool. I jumped through a hoop. I shot an arrow. Whatever. You know, like they just are more interested to talk about it because it's something they care about. So maybe those are two, you know, reasons why that data is showing what it's showing. I don't equate that caring about, you know, knowing more about the video games than about school to, hey, you can't watch this Overwatch League because I saw a beer commercial. You know, if it was a commercial for like, you know, something really inappropriate, like I'm trying, you know, like a porn site or something like really not for like, I don't think there really are that many parents. I mean, my son's 4 months old, so I guess I'll see when I'm old. Like, I don't think a Budweiser commercial is offending anyone in the year, you know, the year 2021. But I guess who knows?
Christian says,
it just seems all this is so mainstream these days. I don't
yeah, it's a good point. Christian says, I think parenting of this generation is very different than previous generations, and technology has a lot to say for that. No doubt. Look, I guess you could look at it from an industry perspective and say this is good for the industry as a whole because it will just increase acceptance of these kinds of sponsors, which mean more dollars will come in for everything else. Right? Like on the flip side, I also think I sort of feel bad for the alcohol sponsors for like Overwatch League because I don't think that's a sponsorship that will perform, but you know,
who knows? Maybe we'll make it fun.
Maybe after playing enough Overwatch, you need to have a drink, or watching enough Overwatch, you need. All right, let's move on, guys. Let's talk about Sony, because this was big news and a little bit scary news, because I always worry when I see patent news like this. Sony has been actually in the news for a couple of patents in the last 2 weeks, right? We talked about one a week ago. And the headline here is, Sony has patented an esports betting system. It looks like Sony is serious about breaking into esports after its purchase of Evo. And let me just read you the substance of the patent. Basically, it covers the following. Odds for various propositions concerning the play of a computer simulation are determined and presented to a viewer for pecuniary or non-pecuniary wagering purposes. The odds may be determined using past game analytics or may be determined parimutually. The translation here is esports fans can bet on matches, and at the same time, they can advertise to them and host a way to bet on the results, which I think everyone is sort of thinking about doing esports betting this way, right? Like you're watching and in real time you can place bets and it's all kind of in one screen. You know, Jeff, I'm curious how you like. Is this patent worrisome for the betting space? Is it something that?
Well,
right?
it's
like
not.
it seems...
I guess it's not something we sort of know enough about. And it looks like the patent was filed, you know, a few years ago, and now it's just come to light. So we don't know exactly what Sony has planned. I mean, it's the first time we've really seen either a publisher or a platform kind of get deeper into betting, which I think is yeah, a little scary, but also exciting because it kind of shows, okay, they see this big opportunity. So I view that, you know, it's kind of like the TAM is there if they're kind of going after it.
Yep.
And it's also interesting that they did this right after acquiring Evo, like a tournament platform. So it kind of validates the model of, you know, owning the content, having the tournaments, and, you know, the gambling aspect of it. And the way it's a little hazy, and there were some words in that description that I literally didn't know actually what they meant, sadly. But so it's not clear exactly what they're doing with this, whether it's betting on professional matches, whether it's peer-to-peer. It sounds like they're going to analyze players' past performance. So maybe there will be an aspect of kind of you can bet on yourself, or you can bet on, you know, me versus you, Paul, or something like that. I think it's interesting. I think it's certainly where the industry's heading. And, you know, we'll see what Sony does to actually productize this, if anything. I mean, they're currently fighting, you know, a number of different battles, with especially with the consoles just launching, new game. You know, they're battling pretty fierce and emboldened competitor in Microsoft. So they have a lot going on. It'll be interesting to see what they're looking to do to get deeper within esports and betting. Certainly excited to see that.
Lindsay, do you feel like this validates, like Jeff mentioned this point, but I want to sort of press on it. Do you feel like this validates betting as a primary way to monetize esports content, like esports proper, right? Competitive gaming.
Right. It certainly helps. I do think that, and I hate to always compare to traditional sports, but I do think that the traditional sports industry is even moving towards this just because there's a lot more like Amazon's next gen stats, powered by the cloud, whatever. They're incorporating a lot more of that kind of stuff into their overlays as well, which to me suggests that they're probably, I mean, if Sony filed this patent a couple of years ago, then unsurprisingly, professional sports are still a little bit behind in their creativity department when it comes to fan engagement. But I think it certainly helps solidify the idea that betting is a way of better engagement and a way to drive revenue and to monetize and all of that. This definitely is a check in the win column for betting being part of the esports future.
It makes a lot of sense, right? And Jeff, again, you alluded to this, and Lindsay, I think you confirmed it. It's like this idea of vertical integration just makes so much sense in I would argue in sports and esports, right? Where you have the content itself, right? Then you have the monetization and the extra information and data and ability to engage around the content, right? Like, and you have all this stuff under one roof. Seems to be the way at least the top players in the industry are all sort of organizing themselves. Right, that it's not sort of disparate pieces that are all trying to work together. It seems to be coming in under one roof, and vertical integration seems to be the way to make all of this work. I don't know if you guys feel, is it too early to call that, or is there enough evidence out there that this is what's happening now in esports? Right, like you need content, you need tournaments, you need games, you need betting, you need all this stuff under one roof to really have an interesting business.
I'm not entirely convinced that the betting sponsor has to own the tournament, and certainly not that they have to own the game or the platform. I think there's, same way I don't think, again, like Lindsay said, I hate to use the tortured example of traditional sports, but I don't think DraftKings and FanDuel need to necessarily go out and own the NFL or, put on their
I didn't
own
mean
tournaments.
The game publisher. I meant like the actual game that's being played, like
like
a tournament.
Vertically integrated.
But it's the same.
Yeah.
I guess it's the same analogy. It's just esport. I guess it doesn't always work one to one. Like I think that there is a robust enough ecosystem and value chain where there can be tournament providers, and there can be leagues that then sell the data to sports books or to sportsbook aggregators who sell the data to B2C consumer sports books, and then it goes down the value chain that way. Like I don't necessarily think that in this example Sony needs to own the league, the sports book, the actual platform. There's some value in specialization. Like, do I think Sony is going to go out and get a number of different sports betting licenses? Like that is a whole separate company that takes expertise, takes regulatory know-how, capital. Like that is not an easy process. I mean, look how hard it's been just for the minor players in the US. I mean, I know from our experience, just getting one license in New Jersey has taken some time and a ton of capital and a ton of management focus. Is that Sony really wants to do to get 40 states or however many states there's going to be in the US, and then a ton of different jurisdictions over in Europe, plus Canada, Latin America. It's just why go through that hassle?
Because maybe they're looking at what's happening with their business, right? And you have consoles that are being sold at a loss, basically, right? You have maybe margins being squeezed as the cost of game development goes up, right? And you're looking now, they're all trying to create services, like Game Pass and all these other things to generate revenue. You don't think they will ever look at betting in-house as one of those potential paths? Given all the other forces at work.
It's a pretty long-term play. I mean, they're going to have to spend a lot of money before really getting, strong profitability in that space. And I think the console model is one that's pretty tried and true. Even if everyone wanted to bury the console, like it's been probably the last 15 years, everyone's talked about the death of the console, even as recently as a couple of years ago with, the S word and the C word, cloud and Stadia. People could go.
Oh, hold on, Jeff. Hold on. Google Stadia says they're alive and well. Okay,
that's a segue right there.
No, that's the whole segment. Stadia
so
says
we need to talk about it.
We're good, guys. We're not dead.
Even despite that, the console launches have been phenomenal, and that razor blade model works. Like to your point, they do sell the console at a loss, but they're making so much money on the services between PlayStation Now, in Xbox's case, Xbox Live, Xbox Game Pass.
Do they sell it at a loss?
Yeah, they do.
According to Epic versus Apple, they confirmed that they do.
They sort of confirmed. It was very loose.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have my tinfoil hat on.
I think we should talk about Stadia. We really need to. No one's really dug into this. Like, is it going to work? Is it going to fail?
I just your product's in a good place, and your your division's in a good place. When someone needs to make a statement, a company executive insists Stadia is far from struggling. In fact, it's, quote, alive and well.
Naturally.
It's wild when you see this from Google too. Like that's if this was like some small startup that everyone thought was like running out of money and it was like, no, we're good. Yes, we're good. This is Google. Like it's embarrassing.
It is embarrassing. I don't know. I just brought it up because I thought it might come up. Like we don't have to talk about this. We know it's a dumpster fire. We know this thing's dying. If you needed more proof, let me just read one of the other quotes. He says, "We're well on our way to over 100 new games launching on Stadia in 2021, and we're continuing to make Stadia a great place to play games on devices you already own. I tell any non-believers to take notice of how we're continuing to put our words into action as we grow the Stadia Makers program and partner with AAA studios like Capcom, EA, Square Enix, Ubisoft, and others." And then the article mentions, what's interesting is Google has never revealed how many people actually use Stadia. They claim there were hundreds of thousands fewer controllers sold and monthly active users logging on than Google had expected. And this obviously came from the Apple Epic trial, this little exchange over Twitter. Someone asked Tim Sweeney, "Do you know whether or not Google Stadia is in existence today?" Sweeney said, "My understanding is that after a public launch, Google Stadia has been very significantly scaled back." So, I don't know. Nail in the coffin for Stadia, guys. Do we need any more?
No.
It's alive and well, folks. Okay? Don't worry.
On a related note, I'm finally actually writing an op-ed on why broadband is going to be important if cloud gaming ever wants to survive.
Well, yeah.
Which is only a piece of the puzzle here, and I mentioned that several times.
You still, even with broadband, you still don't get negative latency. But anyway.
That's true. That's why I said it's a piece. It's a portion.
I just want to stay on the betting piece. Was the segue I wanted to make here, with Skills in the news, and this I thought, Skills stock has been beaten up pretty badly, and I think we talked about it 2 weeks ago, Jeff, or last week maybe, and some of the numbers around it, and this headline I thought was interesting. This initiative, at least from them, was interesting. And the headline here is, NFL begins accepting submissions for mobile esports game to launch before 2022 season. And basically what they're doing, it's very clever. I've not seen this before. So Skills is partnering with the NFL, okay? And basically they're taking applications for something called the Game Developer Challenge, okay? Where a bunch of developers have until the end of the month to submit a concept for an NFL-inspired game that will launch on Skills. And the winner of this challenge that designs the best game will get access to NFL and team logos, and the game will be launched on the Skills app. And Skills will give them $50,000 towards user acquisition and promotion via the NFL.
And they're
I
saying
thought this was very cool. I don't know.
this
Do
is
you,
awesome.
It's a great idea. I
It's
mean, this
so
is this
cool.
was honestly so when this news hit, that was actually what pushed their stock. You know, whenever it went to $45, like it was kind of on this news, and you could see why people would get excited about it. I mean, the big knock on Skills is that they don't have enough developers on the platform. It's very, you know, like 80-20 rule, like 80% of the revenue comes from, actually not even 20%, it comes from like 2 of the developers. So getting more developers on the platform and getting more kind of higher fidelity AAA type games is a big push for them, and a big thing that investors have pushed back on. So it makes a ton of sense to use this initiative to get developers, and it's going to attract, it probably will attract some interesting you know, folks to try to, because the juice is sort of worth the squeeze. If you're the one who wins, you get the marketing support of Skills and the NFL. That could really be a nice little thing for your company, depending on the scale of your company that you're talking about. The question though becomes, what kind of game are you really going to see someone be able to build in a month? It's not going to be a simulation style game.
to be clear, they have to submit their concept by May 31st. Okay.
Fair.
And the winner, the final submission is due by December 31st.
Okay, so they do have a bit more time, but I still think you're going to see. It's tough to see that you're going to get, like, you're not going to get Madden for mobile. Like, there's just, I don't think you're going to be able to execute against that. So what kind of game is someone going to be able to build that's skill based and can have a betting component that's NFL oriented? Like, maybe you get some sort of CCG, kind of like in what's the collectible card game that NBA has with Take-Two? Like, I forget what it's called, but something along those lines, almost like a daily fantasy, but with gambling. Like, that's kind of the only thing I can think of, which maybe that resonates, maybe that works. But one of the things that a lot of the bears on Skills have said is this isn't the first time that they've kind of had a initiative like this, and they tend to sort of fizzle out and not, they've announced kind of similar things in the past that haven't really led to much. So it'll be an interesting one to follow. It certainly has potential.
Of course, like, it's all in the execution, right? You can announce anything you want. If you don't execute on it well, it's not going to matter. Lindsay, do you love this? Do you like?
Oh yeah, this is great. I think this is really cool because, well, honestly, just getting access to the logos is so expensive. So whatever app developer winds up with this I hope can make it into something really cool. To Jeff's point, though, I do think it's hard to be really creative and original in like a 6-month time span. But
it's mobile
also,
though, so it's like you don't need to build the same kind of graphics as a full-blown PC game, or stuff that takes that's very time consuming.
Really fun.
Did you guys know? Actually, I only discovered it from this article. Did you know the NFL was an investor in Skills?
I did not know that.
Because that was news to me. In November 2019, the NFL actually invested in Skills through their, I didn't even know the NFL had this, the league's strategic investment arm called 32 Equity. Which I did, like I said, I didn't even know existed. But it's interesting because they've been in bed together since 2019.
It's interesting. Yeah, the NFL has a lot of different, venture and initiative arms. Like, I know the Players Association has their own like little venture fund that does a lot of investments in gaming.
Christian says, first LOL Stadia. Yes, LOL Stadia. That's how I feel about Stadia. Enough time to build a second screen experience game. Yeah, I mean, definitely, Christian. The question is, for it to be on Skills, it has to be skill-based, and you have to be able to bet on it, right? So I don't know if a second screen experience would fall.
You're basically describing DraftKings, like daily fantasy.
But I did think this was a very clever way to sort of extend this partnership and do something interesting. Because what they don't mention, by the way, is what they do mention is from that group that applies with a concept by May 31st, they pick 15 who then develop a game, right? So there's one winner, but you have 14 other games that then have been developed. and I'm sure if some of them are good enough, Skills maybe does something with them. I don't know. But it's a clever way to bring more good options in terms of games to their platform and do it in a way that generates quite a bit of buzz. I liked it a lot.
So fun.
Let's move on, guys. Let's talk about Bad Robot here. And Bad Robot, you guys may know the name. It's J.J. Abrams'
I was
production
just reading
company.
about this. Yeah.
And the headline here is Bad Robot Games clinches 40 million Series B fundraising round. And so Bad Robot Games is the video game division of his production company. The financing round was led by Galaxy Interactive, big entertainment venture fund, Horizons Ventures, Iconic Capital, and Tencent, interestingly enough. And so, a pretty good, slate of investors there, very strong investors there. And the whole idea is, what they're saying is, with this funding, they're going to build out the studio and co-development sides of our operation, create games that cross platforms, cross mediums, and are based on IP originating from both games and linear content. And they're very much looking forward to announcing their first titles. So, what do you guys think of this? 40 million's a big round for a game studio at that stage, right? They haven't put out a game.
Yeah.
And this, just to be clear, the company originally started in 2018, and the original financing was from Tencent and Warner Brothers. So they already had very big entertainment and gaming names in there. Is this, is this going to end up being the example of movies and entertainment not understanding the gaming world, right? 5 years from now, where they still don't have a game, or they have something that got canceled or flopped? Or are we going to see this as the perfect marriage between movies and gaming, and sort of the holy grail where IP can cross into both sides and work well on both sides? I'm curious where you guys see this playing out.
My entire stance on this was competing views. I had the most whataboutism. When I was reading through this, I could not help myself of 3 years is a long time without producing a game, but CD Projekt Red spent, forever in development with Cyberpunk, and then it failed. So it's better to take the time that you need. But 3 years is a long time. They should get more funding if they're going to make an Oscar level worthy game. But then again, do people even really like Oscar level worthy games? Is that even a good idea? But it's J.J. Abrams. In my own mind, it kept going and going. Their initial funding was a lot, but 40 million isn't I have no idea how this is going to play. There's just
lots of back and forth.
That's
but
where
no.
I ended. Yeah, no. I kept trying. And the one thing I suppose that gives me some faith in this is that I don't think they would have raised Series B funding from such prominent companies if they hadn't put together some type of presentation that was compelling.
Keep in mind, you walk into a room and you're like, I'm J.J. Abrams, give me 40 million bucks.
Yeah.
Is probably where the pitch
It's
ends.
a good pitch.
Right.
It's a good pitch.
It's a good pitch.
And that's what still gives me some hope in it. But that hope is very
Is the question,
relative.
are we surprised that they got the money, or do we think it's going to turn into a
where
good
do you think
game?
it's gonna?
How could we possibly
if
know?
we're having this
We
conversation,
have no information about the game. The only thing we know is it's J.J. Abrams. So
Maybe it's 10 games.
I don't know. Maybe it's going to be good. I think that it would be. I like to be optimistic. I mean, we talk all about this crossover world, it's not really metaverse, but metaverse-y type where we, IP goes from linear to interactive, and it's sort of that is the future, I think. Can it be J.J. Abrams that creates that future? I don't know. Maybe he's good at making movies and TV.
but that's kind of the crux of the question.
I don't know. Maybe
Does being good at making movies, and I would argue J.J. Abrams is not good at making movies, because Tess says, I'd pay for a Star Trek adventure game a la J.J. Abrams. Tess, I love you. You know I love you. But J.J. Abrams single-handedly ruined Star Trek, okay? And so...
The dramatic.
I mean, in all seriousness, it's all going to depend on who they bring in, right, to build the actual game. JJ Abrams, I assume, is just like the executive producer, like kind of putting all his face on this. Maybe he's involved in the story writing. I don't even know if he writes his own scripts or what I admittedly, I don't know that much about JJ Abrams as much as you clearly do.
But there's a bigger question, Jeff, which is like, should people in the movie business be making games, or should they stick to making movies, right? And people in the game business, should they be trying to cross over into movies, or should they stick to making games? Like, because this could have been like Bad Robot, right? Didn't need to start a studio called Bad Robot Games. What they could have done is they could have said, you know, we have some original IP we're developing into movies, right? And then go talk to EA and say, EA, can you make a game around this?
Of course, the vertical, you know, the specialization is a lot of times the best strategy. But if we all agree that at some point the future should look like integrated, interactive and linear content, and that's like the nirvana where we're supposed to head, then why not let them try? Like, will it fail? Yeah, probably, but that doesn't mean it's not a worthy goal. And I think that, you know, your question is interesting, and I'm not sure the answer of, okay, it seemed like you posed it two different ways, but I think the question that's more interesting is it better for a games person to try to make content like movies and TV, or a TV movies person try to make games?
Yeah,
I don't know
that's
the
one
answer.
way of phrasing.
I don't know the answer to that question.
Well, Tess has the answer in this case, which is, and Tess is one of my superstars, and this is the reason why. This is how you know someone works for me. Like, he also ruined Star Wars. I haven't forgiven him either. This is greatest comment ever, and I couldn't agree more.
I mean,
he did. He ruined my two loves.
He's a hero.
He ruined.
Kills both. He killed the annoying
drama.
Star Trek people and the annoying Star Wars people. Us normal people can be happy now, you know?
He did. He single-handedly destroyed everything I love. I mean, that's just the unfortunate
Very
part.
dramatic.
Did he kill Lord of the Rings as well, or World of Warcraft?
No,
Right.
but he might with Bad Robot Games.
With Bad Robot, they're going to have the ambitious crossover with Activision Blizzard.
Let's there's a similar story here. I don't know if we want to like keep on this, but it was a similar article that came out talking about Warner Brothers, because basically Warner Brothers gaming division is supposedly going to be broken up in the AT&T Discovery merger. And it's interesting because they're breaking these pieces apart, and I think they will be operated separately. It's not clear in this article, but Warner Brothers Interactive is 11 game studios. They have properties like Lord of the Rings, Batman Arkham, Mortal Kombat, and AT&T, if you guys remember, wanted to sell off that part, right? They were shopping it around, and we talked about it on the live stream. And those talks don't exist anymore. But now in this merger, it seems like Warner Brothers Interactive is going to be orphaned, and it's not clear if some of the studios might get sold off. Are you guys surprised that? Like, why would potentially, you would think, right, the future of entertainment, why would that piece be the piece that gets orphaned? Is anyone surprised by this?
It's so nearsighted, and it's incredibly surprising. I mean, we've had the similar conversations about Disney hundreds of times. I feel like why is Disney not leaning more into gaming? Because it just seems like something that should be a core competency for them, because it's so important to the future of entertainment that it's crazy to me that they want to lose the means of production. And I feel the same way here, where it's like you're creating this new asset that's this exciting, like, third biggest media content streaming behemoth. You've got Discovery, which is all like the Food Network, Property Brother Network, like all these, like, whatever, everything my wife watches.
90 Day Fiance.
Like, yeah, all these things, like, every single one of them could be a mobile game. Like, you don't think there could be a cool, like, cooking channel mobile game? And then you have the, they
own DC Comics, right?
Right.
To be
and
clear.
you're combining with Warner Brothers, which
Harry Potter.
already has great IP and already has Warner Brothers Interactive, which is like a very good asset in the gaming space. You would think that they would want to use that as part of their flywheel in this world of kind of linear moving to interactive. But I guess they don't see it as, you got to remember the people running this business are, they come from the old world of media. I mean, it's David Zaslav, the guy, he's a programming media guy, like came up from publishing background, like doing newspapers. So it's, they don't have the expertise, but it's very short-sighted, I think.
It's weird though, right? Because you have to believe that they're trying to build something Disney-esque, right, with this merger. And you'd think you'd have looked at Disney and said, they've been struggling with games. Like, we already have this asset. We could do a lot better. This might be one
that could be a
significant
flank
competitive advantage, right? Like, if we want to take on Disney, which is the only reason you would do a $43 billion merger, right? It's just weird to me that there's no clarity on where the interactive assets are going to go, if they're going to be sold off, if they're going to be like they really might be orphaned in this deal. And that it's very odd. I mean, Lindsay, I don't know if you have other thoughts on this or.
I wish I understood AT&T's strategy a little more. I keep visually picturing it. Have you guys seen the movie Spirited Away? Mm. Oh, it's a Studio Ghibli classic. Anyway,
is that a rom-com or is that
no? It's Studio Ghibli. Ghibli.
Is that Harry Potter? Was that like the 7th Harry Potter? Harry Potter and the Studio Ghibli?
No, it's anime. Anyways, there's a no-name spirit in it, and he just eats everything in sight, like all of it, and he can't speak, and then he throws it all up. And like, that's what I just keep picturing AT&T as. Like, I have no idea what they're doing. Even the divestiture of these companies that they just recently bought, like, who's going to be in charge of them? Is it intentional divestiture? They haven't done a lot with Warner.
Well, it's the Discovery CEO who's going to be the CEO.
No,
of the
I know, but they
entity.
haven't done a lot with Warner Media in general. I
saw something where it was showing AT&T's CEO's compensation and like John Stankey, who's the head of their media division, and basically in the last 7 years, like AT&T stock has not moved. And they pay a dividend, so you're getting something, but basically it's flat for like 7 years. And these dudes like combined have made like $700 million in compensation to literally just tread water and like burn shareholder capital.
They're the no-name spirit. They're just eating.
But that's the media. That's literally the media industry. All these guys, it's like Viacom, Discovery, like they've been declining and getting their lunch eaten by the FANG companies in tech for the last 15 years. And yet their executives just make like buku money.
They're just not declining enough to want to make any type of change. Like, there's still these giant behemoth companies. And I understand.
Guys, there are Yellow Pages companies still in business. Okay. Let's put things in perspective.
Yeah, but those companies actually like make money. They make EBITDA. Like it's actually like probably a good business because you don't have to spend it. It's kind of just like
the status quo.
That's an annuity stream.
Yeah.
Christian says Lindsay Spirited Away is an amazing film. Oh, yeah. They don't know what they are missing.
If anyone can tell me the proper pronunciation of Studio Ghibli or Ghibli, that would be very much appreciated. But yes, it is an incredible film.
Josh says Jeff just insulting all the movies today.
I'm showing my true colors.
Yeah. Just like don't know anything about culture. I don't even know why I was surprised. I told you I was going to roast you today, Jeff. I've been waiting for the moment.
Every time you say that, I picture lacrosse Jeff.
If William was here, he'd be like rolling his eyes, like, oh, yeah.
With a red Solo cup, Let's talk about Epic here, guys. More lawsuits from Epic Games. Not much of a story here, just interesting sort of distraction kind of story. And the headline is Epic Games sues AR company Unreal for sounding too much like Unreal. It claims Unreal's name is virtually identical to the Unreal engines. So Epic, who's in a huge lawsuit with Apple, decides they now want to go after China-based Unreal, that makes a virtual reality headset, for having a name that's too similar. No, there's not a ton to discuss here, guys. Right? I don't want to unpack the lawsuit and the specifics or anything like that. But like, do we think at this point Epic is just majorly distracted with all this, or is this just so minor that you don't think?
I think this is like something the lawyers bring to, like, this probably spent 10 minutes on Tim Sweeney's mind, and it's like hey, there's these people in China. It sounds like our name. Should we try to sue them? Yeah, like you got, here's like $1 million. Like, go knock yourself out. Like, sue them. That's what I don't think this is like a distraction. The Apple we've covered. I think that was a calculated strategy that seems to be backfiring. But it's actually wild. Like, I was looking through some of the documents that came out from the law. I mean, maybe it's not surprising or shouldn't be surprising, but just the amount of planning that went in. Like, they don't think that they got into this and they're like, oh, we had no idea how Apple was going to react or what was going to happen. Like, they planned out exactly what they were going to do, how Apple was going to respond, and what was going to happen. Now, we can say that it hasn't gone well, but they went into it with eyes wide open and kind of like war gamed it out to a sort of impressive fashion, I thought, at least. This, I don't think, is that big of a deal.
But hold on, let me just put things like, let me try and make it feel more like a deal, okay? Which is, you're in this Epic Apple lawsuit, okay? You're Tim Sweeney, and a big part of this is sort of being decided in the court of public opinion, right? Epic wants to look like the little guy standing up for the little guy, right? Taking on the big bad Apple, and if ideally, I would think they want people to get behind that, right? Why go and sue some little company in China, right, over something that has probably zero impact on your business? Like, no one was like, oh, like, let me go download Unreal Engine.
The wrong engine. Damn. Right? Yeah. I was building my game on Unreal Engine.
Yeah, right. Like, has zero impact on their business, but yet makes them seem not like a bully, but like, I don't know.
It's
petty, right? And so in the context of needing goodwill from the public, it's not that the goodwill from the public's going to help them win the lawsuit, but it definitely won't hurt, right? Why do this? Lindsay, do you feel like, again, is it just kind of misguided or mistimed?
I don't know, because it doesn't come across well. It comes across as petty, and it comes across as like Epic will fight anyone over anything. Like, it's not the best move, and I think, Jeff, what you said is probably right. Like, oh, it's been 10 minutes on Tim Sweeney's mind, and then he moved on from it. But at the same time, it's getting news coverage and we're talking about it, which means that it got out to the general public. And this is a time when we're all talking about Epic anyway, so any moves that you do are going to be newsworthy, and this just feels completely unnecessary. Maybe if they weren't in the middle of a lawsuit with Apple, I'd be like, that's petty, whatever, it's Epic, it's silly. But now it's like, it's petty, why are you doing that? Like, go do other stuff.
Guys, before we get to the next story, just a quick word. Did you guys know that esports fans say they're 3 times more likely to engage with Taylor advertising than soccer fans, or that hardcore gamers in the US are 22% more likely to use ad blockers? These insights are pulled from YouGov Profiles, the most complete and granular data set for understanding what the world thinks and does. Guys, YouGov is a great sponsor of the live stream and of our Business of Esports Minute. Go check them out, yougov.com/gaming-esports. They have a bunch of free reports on esports and gaming sector. If you're an agency, if you're a brand, if you're doing business at all in the gaming sector, this is the kind of data you need to do business and to understand your audience and to make good decisions. So go check them out, yougov.com/gaming-esports. I'm going to put it, guys, in the chat. Please go take a look, support the people that support us, and reach out to them if you need anything in terms of data. All right, let's talk, guys, about, we have a couple more stories, actually. So we have Tencent in the news, which could be interesting. And we have an interesting Ninja story also, which could be a good one to discuss. I don't know. You guys want to do both, or is there one or the other that
Let's do them all. Let's do them all.
Yeah, let's do both.
We're having so much fun.
All right, let's do them all. Let's talk about Tencent first. Tencent in the news here. Tencent launches 60 new video games, partners with Microsoft as rivalry with ByteDance heats up. So basically, Tencent's Timmy Studios and Microsoft's Xbox Game Studios formed a strategic partnership. And as part of this partnership and at their Tencent's annual video gaming conference, they announced more than 60 new titles coming from their game studios. I mean, when I saw this, I actually thought it was a typo because 60 new games is more games than I think maybe Activision Blizzard has made in the entirety of its existence. But does anyone think this is just an unbelievable number? Is Tencent just going to flood the market with new games? And obviously some of these are like mobile games and things like that, right? So it's not all like AAA blockbuster on your PC, whatever. But can anyone keep up with Tencent at this point? And now Tencent plus Microsoft from a game development perspective. Jeff, I don't know your thoughts on this.
Yeah.
No one can keep up with Tencent. I mean, they are a machine on the investment side and they also hold the keys to China. So it's almost like you have to do business with them as a Western publisher. Either that or you have to go to NetEase or like there's two other kind of names that you could
or
go
ByteDance.
to. Yeah,
which makes
ByteDance is interesting as a competitor because we obviously know about them from TikTok, but we don't hear about them in gaming. I think in the West quite as much, but I do think they probably will start making more noise. Forgot what your initial question was. Can anyone keep up?
Scale and size, right?
It's impressive. Yeah, 60 games is. To your point, I think a lot of those are probably mobile games or maybe China versions of like Call of Duty Mobile, Apex Legends. Like they can include, all of those as new games. I do think the Microsoft partnership with Timi is interesting because Timi is typically known as a mobile publisher. So what are they doing with Microsoft? I think that was probably more interesting to me than the 60 being, a big number.
So you're telling me if you're EA or you're Activision, right? You're not concerned at all when you see Timmy and Microsoft together and under the Tencent umbrella announcing 60 new games? Like, are you not worried that they can sort of just flood the market with enough content every single year that your sort of one game every 4 or 5 year kind of model maybe stops resonating, right? Because people always want the new.
I don't think in the West that's typically a strategy that works. I mean, there's already tons and tons of games that flood onto Steam daily, but the franchises that are popular with the IP that's popular tend to resonate in the West, at least on PC and console. Mobile has always been that, massive flood of stuff on the Apple Store, and that's why mobile gaming is its own kind of different beast, and customer acquisition costs and actually getting people to download your game is really the biggest part of mobile gaming. The actual game is sort of secondary. But I do think these studios in the West are probably worried just as they look at the scale and the resources that Tencent has. And at some point, they're going to turn their attentions to the West just because it's such a big market. And they already have China basically on lock. At some point, in order to grow, they're going to need to move west. And I know Tencent has sort of started doing that. They have a lot of investments in a lot of these studios, but they also, I think, have a presence in the U.S. and in the West. So I do think that is something for the bigger players to worry about. Can Tencent throw enough resources? I don't think it would be a flood the zone type thing because that strategy I don't think would work. But could they create a big IP that competes with the Apexes, the Call of Duties, the Grand Theft Autos of the world? They sure do have the resources, so it's possible.
Well, to that end, because I don't know that much about the Microsoft strategic partnership either. Could one of you talk about that and whether or not you think that more of these Western companies will partner with these powerhouses? in the space?
Yeah, I think that's Christian's question here, right? Which is, are the games directed to the U.S. market? This article specifically doesn't say. I didn't watch the announcement live or the games conference live, and it obviously wasn't in English, and so I also don't know if they did say. But I would bet good money that some portion of that 60 games, because of the Microsoft partnership, will come west. Is it 5 games? Is it 10 games? Is it 2 games? I don't know. But my guess is the big part of the Microsoft partnership is access to the development studios in the West and the audiences in the West.
Is there any like specifics on what the partnership is? Again, I'm asking because I don't know about it, so I don't know. Like it might just be called a strategic partnership, but I was just curious if there's anything about what the actual.
I haven't seen much about it. It happened literally like a few days ago.
It could also just be like a cross-publishing agreement where it's like, okay, Teamy's going to put games on Microsoft Store on the Xbox, and some of the Xbox games will get access to China through whatever Chinese PC, Steam, whatever platform Tencent has.
Well, Christian asked an interesting question here, guys. I want. There's a good discussion around this. When it comes to games,
my exact point.
Quality over quantity, Tencent can produce a bunch of games, but gamers will ultimately choose the titles they like. Marketing dollars also helps. I don't think Christian's wrong here, right? And Jeff, I know you made that point. It's more, though, that games are a little bit like investments or Broadway shows or movies, right? Like, if you put out 60 of them, there's a higher chance you will have a Fortnite in there, right? And because you don't really know. Yes, the quality may be slightly lower, but like Among Us isn't a high quality game, but it became a huge hit, right? Mm-hmm. And so the chance of having a hit goes way up, as opposed to putting out 2 games and hoping desperately that one of them's a home run. I just think gaming has become something of a home run business from a developer and publisher perspective. And by Tencent putting out 60 games, they've massively increased their chance of a home run. I don't know if you guys...
especially in the mobile market, like the mobile market is all about new games over quality games. I do think that, to your point and to Christian's point, quality still matters, but I do think that the balance has shifted in favor of quantity. Like, I think a long time ago, when there was very few game releases per year and 2 consoles you could play games on, then yes, quality was of the utmost importance because you weren't getting that many. But now, when you have access to games on every device in every place, I think that quantity plays a little bit more. And I think it's more about balancing the two than it is about choosing which one is more important over the other. Because in the mobile market, quantity is definitely more important, but in the PC market, quality is probably more important. Yeah. So it depends on their mix of games too.
Yeah, I think one of the things we've seen recently is IPs becoming more like forever franchises and going to different consoles, and the moats really, deepening, right? Like we've seen, look at Apex Legends, right? Everyone thought it was a flash in the pan, and it's continued to grow. I was reading EA's transcript just earlier. It's going to do $750 million next year. Right? That's massive. Like I remember the first year people thought they said it was going to do 300 million, and then everyone was disappointed. And turns out, 2 years later, it's doubled that, and it's continuing to grow 20% year over year. That's an incredibly successful franchise. So the moats around the most popular IP are deepening. So, Paul, the corollary I think I would give to your example of, you kind of describe gaming as like almost the VC model, where it's like a power law kind of thing. You want to scatter 50 shots and one of them will be your home run. I think that is true in the sense of if you're just trying to get a moderate hit, like you'll get a Fall Guys or something like that will do well, shark fin and then kind of go out. If I were trying to create a lasting brand and a lasting IP, I think I'd rather have like 2 or 3 deep shots that I spend $150 million on versus 100 things I spend $5 million on. Because
the risk profile there is different, though.
Yeah.
And if we're talking about Tencent, what they're looking to do, if we're talking about what would scare EA and Activision, it's if Tencent takes $1 billion and makes 4 Apex Legends style games for the West, that scares EA and Activision a hell of a lot more than if Tencent takes $1 billion and makes, a $205 million games. Yeah. That doesn't scare them at all because, a couple of them will make money, and that strategy in and of itself might be less risky for Tencent, and they actually might make more, the ROI on that might actually be better, but that doesn't scare EA. What scares EA is if they try to create a franchise that could kill Battlefield, that could kill Apex, kill Call of Duty.
Well, I think Christian has a good point sort of on your point here, Jeff, which is he says, but maybe one of those 60 games will stick and then they can try to sequel it or make it a live game like Apex, right? That is a potential model.
It's true, but have we ever seen that work? Maybe with the scale.
Like you get one hit and then you double down on it, right? Like
it's definitely a fair pushback. And if you have the resources of Tencent, you might be able to do that. Like, hey, throw a bunch of crap at the wall. Oh, that seems to be working. Okay, now move all the resources over there. Let's build it. That could very well work. But I feel like in order to create a franchise and an IP, you kind of need to have that up front. You need to build out that world, build out the mechanics, build out what it's going to be, the lore. It's really hard to just create like some 3-level platformer and then be like, oh wow, it turns out it's really popular. Like, let's turn it into the next Destiny. Like, it just doesn't. I don't think it really works that way. I don't know. I'm not a game developer, but it's harder than you think to create IP.
All right, let's move on to this last story. This is a good story to end on, actually, because it's the numbers here are massive. The headline here: Ninja says he once made $5 million in a month from his Fortnite creator code. The subheadline: The streaming superstar cashed in big time. And this was on a live stream. He said it. But basically, he revealed that he made $5 million in a single month from the proceeds of his Fortnite creator code, which, by the way, allows creators. So for those of you who don't know, if you go on Fortnite and you buy something like a $10 skin, you can support your favorite streamer or creator by putting in their creator code, in this case, Ninja's, and they get 5% of that purchase price. So that means if he made $5 million in a month, guys, let's do the math here. That means people who are Ninja fans, right, spent $100 million in that month on Fortnite skins. And my guess is this was not just 1 month, right? I'm sure at his peak Fortnite, this was probably over 6 months, right? Like where the numbers were this big. Are any of you guys shocked by this? Like, is this like,
did he say when this was by chance? Like what time period? I'm wondering if it was in. Okay. Well, I was just wondering if it's in there. If it's in Fortnite's period of having, 180 million monthly active users or whatever, and it's like they had 250 at their peak, right? So it's incredible because it's obviously less than each user spending $1, but to have that type of conversion of to have 50% of your users buying something is nuts.
I mean, your users spending $100 million on a game, right, is incredible.
Oh yeah.
In general,
my point was just to
create that level of engagement is unheard of.
Yeah.
Right, like absolutely unheard of. And it's one of the reasons why he's completely, still in the pantheon of gaming at the very top in his ability to engage a community. I think at least I was just surprised at how big this single number was, right? This is not his subscriber revenue, ad revenue, brand sponsorships, mixer deal. Like, this is $5 million a month just from creator code. I'm curious how much you guys think that drives people to purchase in the first place if they know it's going to support someone that they like and are watching.
I don't know if it's to support. I think it's more like it's social signal. It's like you mean they feel good that they're like helping Ninja, or
here's the question, right? I want to get into the business mechanism of this, right?
Right.
Do we think having a creator code system encourages more spend? right? Was this brilliant on Ninja's part, or was this brilliant on Epic's part, right? Did Epic get $100 million in spend because, you know, they created an incentive for Ninja here? Like, and are people more likely to spend if they know dollars are going back to Ninja?
I think it's a win-win in the sense of it's like affiliate marketing and gambling. Like, yeah, the affiliate's doing well that sends them to the gambling site, but you're also creating demand that probably wasn't there. Like someone is seeing it's advertising, right? Like someone is seeing Ninja advertise this and then they're buying it because they see the advertisement. Are they buying it to support Ninja? Like Ninja needs more money. I don't think that's the motivation. It's probably like, I think
it's the emotional connection to it though.
Yeah, it could be that. It could be that.
Like, so what I want to get at is like, and this is the direct question. Let me rephrase it, which is there was of all the people who were watching Ninja play Fortnite, right? Was there even one person who went and bought a skin because he knew Ninja would be getting something back as a consequence of him buying that? Did anyone go purchase just because of that?
This is kind of like a known marketing tactic, and unfortunately, I only know it in like really horrible contexts. So, for example, like really horrible. So I'm very sorry in advance. But for example, organizations that were looking to raise money for the Syrian refugee crisis in 2017, 2018, were having no success until a photo of a little boy who was like washed up on the beach after drowning on a ship went massively viral. And all of a sudden, because people saw a little boy and they thought, oh my God, that could be my kid, that could be my cousin, that could be my little nephew, whatever, like donations skyrocketed. There's actually a similar story with the National Geographic picture of children starving in Yemen, and there's a horrible photo of like a starving child. And anyways, the point is it's a very, very common and well-researched marketing tactic to build that emotional connection through literally one point of contact. And so given Ninja's audience and given his connection to especially like younger people, to all the Fortnite players, I mean, he built not his whole career, but a large part of his career on the rise.
And he was a role model to them.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Like massive popularity, all that. Building that one emotional point of contact is definitely something that drives sales. People definitely bought it because Ninja was saying, go buy this, guys, like it'll help me out 100%. And that's a known way to market.
I mean, Josh agrees with you here, Lindsay. He says it's such a great way for consumers to justify a purchase that they might already be on the fence about. Like it's impossible to have this data, right? But the geek in me would love to know like what percentage like bought purely because of that, right? Like how much did it really motivate people to buy? I think is so interesting, but like it's the numbers.
If he said, be my friend, go buy this, I mean, people are going to go running. Who doesn't want to, that's that emotional thing that you build upon. And Ninja did a great job building his audience in that way and making those connections. So I'm not surprised that they then followed up by spending money. So
for everyone watching, please go buy some Business of Esports merchandise. Some of the proceeds do come back.
Starving kid in Yemen. Think of Paul as a starving child in Yemen that won't be able to eat otherwise.
Like the
Very
only
similar
case
to Ninja.
studies about this are like just the most horrible things. But this is how I learned about this as a marketing tactic. Like these
It makes perfect sense in the one you're saying. I'm just not sure.
Yeah.
Exactly
You can tell I am starving.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Is there anything else you guys wanted to talk about? Anything we didn't cover? Those are all the stories I had for today. A little bit of a short, actually not really. We're about an hour and 20 minutes here. Anything else that you guys, Jeff, Lindsay, that I didn't cover maybe?
Jeff, wasn't there something you want to talk about?
You sent me something about...
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Let's talk about that because that was interesting.
I just love Strauss.
I liked this. Yeah, I really liked this.
He's so pragmatic.
So I won't even bring this up, but let me just give you guys the context. So Take-Two had their earnings call. On the earnings call, Strauss Zelnick, who's the CEO, basically said when prompted about sort of the metaverse, or someone asked a question related to the metaverse or something, basically said, I'm always allergic to buzzwords. Amazing creativity, great characters, and great stories, great graphics, great gameplay. That's what really matters. And so he completely poo-pooed the metaverse. He completely poo-pooed, for the longer version, other things like VR, AR, 3D, like
SPACs,
crypto. Like he completely poo-pooed every hot buzzword on the planet and said, guys, let's focus on what really matters here, making great games, if I'm paraphrasing. Kind of genius in my mind. I mean, I don't know if you guys have a different take on this.
I'm a huge Strauss fan. I mean, I feel like everyone in the finance side of gaming has a man crush on Strauss to some extent, and to maybe a lesser.
He's also just extremely good looking. So
I was gonna say Bobby as well, but less of that's more of admiration than a crush. But he sort of has this way of explaining things and sort of cutting right through the BS. And he's had such a distinguished career in entertainment and the finance, the business side of these things. Like you kind of, when he gets on the earnings call, you just want to listen, and he opines about stuff like this where, he sort of has no business opining about crypto and SPACs, but I just love that he does, because that's what Strauss does. The only pushback to my fanboying is that in the past, Strauss has also been negative on mobile. He's been negative on free to play. He's kind of been negative on, a number of other different areas in the gaming space that he's.
So in other words, he's right about everything.
Proven wrong in some areas, or at least had to walk back some of the things like they have gotten bigger in mobile. Clearly, AAA franchises do work on mobile. Activision proved that. So he's not infallible, but he's right most of the time. Like I give him so much respect. Like when every executive on the planet at all these gaming companies in 2018 was talking up cloud and subscription, how this was the future. These were SaaS businesses. It was a subscription model. He was the only one kind of being like, guys, relax. Like the TAM, just because you don't need to buy a console doesn't necessarily mean we're going to get another billion gamers. Like there's no evidence out there that there's a billion people that want to play games, but the only thing stopping them is buying a console. Like there's no evidence of that. And he was proven, largely exactly right on that. So yeah, that was a long-winded response, but I think he's incredibly wise, and I listen when he talks.
Lindsay, how do you feel about the anti-buzzword comments here?
I mean, I love that Jeff's hero is the old man yelling at cloud guy. That's
He's not. No, hold on. Hold on. This is not.
God. Two fanboys in one room. Chill out, guys. It's a joke.
Yes. I am a Strauss Zelnick fanboy. The guy's brilliant and very accomplished.
It was a joke about him yelling about the mobile market and all these other things. In fact, both of you are old men yelling at clouds. Jeez.
Hey, I'm a young man yelling at the cloud. Paul's the one with the gray beard.
That's true. That's true.
No, but whenever these words catch on like this, it drives me bonkers. So I understand what he's talking about too. And we've talked about this before. Like, what even is the metaverse? Nobody's gonna wake up one day and be like, this is it. Like it's a silly thing to focus on. To me, I don't know. It's part of the overall development of the gaming industry. And we're gonna keep talking about the development of the gaming industry, whether we call it the metaverse or not.
Yeah. I agree. It's great. I mean, you put it so perfectly, I think, which is why I agree with him, right? It's not that I think we should just stop using the word metaverse, or we should stop, trying to get to that, holodeck future, metaverse future. But what I love about Strauss is just like, and I think what's made him successful is, let's cut through the crap. Let's focus on the business. Let's focus on the games. Let's focus on the things that matter. Right? Not on chasing the next big thing, chasing the hype, chasing the fancy announcement, right? Like let's just, and he's been successful because he just executes and he delivers, if he says they're going to make great games, they're going to keep making great games. And that's why I think there's so much respect for him in the industry, but also even outside the industry, right? Like in entertainment broadly and in finance broadly. People listen when he speaks. Christian says, where's the professor? Christian, he had some personal things tonight. I'm sure he will be back either next week or very, very, very soon. Josh says, and by the way, he will be on the podcast, so not to worry. He just couldn't do tonight. Josh says, does he mean that there can't be any overlap?
Overlap in which area?
Yeah, it's a good question. But like, I guess, if I'm reading into your question, is the question like, can you have all the buzzwords but still also have all the focus that he's talking about? Was that sort of the question? I don't know if you interpreted it that way, Jeff.
There's nothing inherently wrong with the buzzwords. I think his point was like the focus on that versus executing on what Take-Two is supposed to do, which is build incredible games that are exciting, fun, entertainment experiences that sell really well and make profits and revenue. You know, that's what their business is. And he even had a point about the metaverse where it was sort of something like, you know, what even distinguishes that? Like some would argue that GTA is quote unquote a metaverse. I mean, you have people meeting up in there every day, spending hours hanging out with their friends, like, you know, like doing things they couldn't do in the real world, shooting people, killing people, whatever. Like that kind of is the sort of ish definition of a metaverse. You know, and I think he made a joke like, "Oh, could we host our conference calls in GTA? Sure, but what would be the practical purpose of that? Like, it's more efficient to do it here." And it's like I kind of respect that. It's like, you know, we'll get to that metaverse future, but we don't need to pretend that everything is what it's not and chase that shiny penny.
By the way, on this topic, like there was another story which I didn't include, but it was about Roblox that came out of the Epic Apple lawsuit, where they don't call their things games anymore. Like the games that you play in Roblox, they're now experiences. And to me, that's where like I draw the line. It's like, okay, guys, come on. Like,
I mean, even the metaverse is the same thing, though.
Yeah, like I know you want to be a metaverse, but let's be. This is not like Roblox is not Ready Player One
Roblox
yet.
A lot of money, so I mean, all these mobile games should call themselves experiences if that's all it takes to save 30% of revenue.
True.
Why not?
It's a bit of a weird loophole, if you ask me. But
Epic could have just done that.
Yeah, why didn't Epic like? Boom, that was the silver bullet. Like, turns out. Take back the lawsuit. Fortnite is now an experience. Give us our money.
All right, guys. That do we want to do? What are we playing this week? You guys didn't play anything, did you?
Let's do like a fun question. Like ask us something like.
Okay, wait, no. Actually, I did play stuff.
What did you play?
Okay, this is a good story. I went to Miami last week.
Yeah.
And
this is why you weren't on the live stream, by the way.
Yes, I was in Miami visiting some family.
Even though you could have done a Miami hot tub.
All of you would have been way too jealous. It's fine. Anyways, we went out one night to get ice cream, like 11, and I asked what time checkout was the next day, and he said 11 a.m. And I said, "Oh, great, that's late." And he said, "Yeah, go out and go party." But what he didn't know was we were going out to get ice cream and coming directly back to play games on the Switch and watch the NBA finals instead.
Wow.
So instead of clubbing, I played the Switch.
Keith says, "Hey Paul, this is Keith. I'm with Levy." Keith, thank you so much, and thank you for bringing Levy. Guys, Levy Rosman, who's better known as Gotham Chess. If you guys watch chess on Twitch, he's a New York-based chess streamer. He's like one of the biggest. Him and GM Hikaru are probably the two biggest chess streamers on Twitch. So welcome, guys. Thank you. You're coming in at the end of our live stream here, just as we're wrapping up. But we have to have Levy on the podcast at some point because we've talked so much about chess as an esport and chess streamers that I would love to get his view on the whole thing. So I'll say it now. We're gonna get Levy on the podcast. So everyone who's listening, stay tuned for that.
I want to know if he thinks chess is an esport. I mean, that's the $1 million question.
Yeah. Keith, is chess an esport? If you're with Levy, let us know. Christian says, "I leveled up in Rocket League. Finally hit broke through that plateau phase I've been at for a while. Very cool."
Woo! Love it when that happens.
And Keith says, "Absolutely." There you go. So there's a whole fun discussion, right? We had a discussion I think 2 weeks ago about poker as an esport, chess as an esport. It's really a fascinating phenomenon, and like Keith says, getting bigger every day, which is true. Guys, that's it. That wraps up this week's live stream. Thank you to everyone who showed up. If you haven't already, go check out some Business of Esports merch, guys. The socks are great. The hoodies are great. We have a ton of very fun stuff that we would love to share with you guys. So go check it out. If you haven't, also make sure go follow us on YouTube, go follow us on Twitter, Instagram, all of our socials. And definitely you want to listen to tomorrow's podcast. The podcast tomorrow is going to be the best ever. It's really an amazing episode. The guest is massive. You guys are going to have fun with that one, I hope, and a lot of fun conversation. And so definitely check that out tomorrow. Lindsay, thank you. Jeff, thank you. All of you guys, Christian, Josh, Keith, Tess, all of you guys who came in, New Sports, everyone who participated tonight. Thank you guys. We really appreciate it. We will be doing this next Wednesday, as always, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. And we will see you guys next week.